Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. I'm so glad to be with you today. Many years ago, I had invited our guest on the show, was so excited about having him on. And I invited another guest, and I happened to be in Nevada, had booked the studio and a brand new relationship with an engineer. It's all ready to go. Everybody's ready, including another gentleman in London, head of a gold fund. And he doesn't show up and he doesn't call. I was devastated. And while I ended up doing a show with the gentleman who owned a gold fund, I could not get a hold of our guest who's here today. For 5 years. I called him again and again, and he travels constantly with his wife. So I kept missing him. And then after the turn of the year, something said to me, call him again. And because I'm like the thing that won't die, I called him again, and they called me back. He called me back, and he's on the show today. Before I introduce him, I want to say a couple of things to you to contextualize this show. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, Nichola Tesla said, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Dr. Jacques Benveniste, a fantastic scientist and pioneer in the area of water, in 1988 realized that water has memory. He was put down and he was attacked mercilessly and later died with that discovery. Over 30 years ago, I ran all over the world and raised money to tell people that businesses were alive and animate, that they have life force, that they're intelligent, that all the different parts of a business have to be in coherence, but I used a different word because I didn't know that word. And that until we did that, we would not have next generation solutions in mass all over the world. That businesses were conscious and had consciousness. But I must tell you, Niels Bohr said, if quantum physics hasn't profoundly shocked you, you haven't understood it yet. Well, the man who's here today is the founder and the creator of the Van Koevering Interactive Piano. He is also somebody who worked with Bob Moog on the Moog synthesizer called the Mini Moog, the first performance synthesizer that was used all over the world in the music industry. He's an inventor with over 600 patents, a musicologist. He was playing 27 instruments in his childhood and youth. He's a quantum physicist. And he has somehow been able to bridge the universe of the highest level, best, most comprehensible parts of Christianity and translate it into quantum physics and bring them together, synthesize them, and merge them in a way I've never heard of anybody anywhere in the world. Please welcome this giant in quantum physics and Christianity, David Van Koevering.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for that great introduction. I will do my best to tell the story. For our listeners tonight, the part of the story that's really important, how that I found the future that was in God's mind before I was. And that included inventions, that included technologies, that included laser optics, that included many things that I now have as a track record of my success that I've enjoyed. I've been married for 54 years to my first wife, and
that's great. I'm going to give you the Marriage Award, which is an incredible award that has never been given out today. I'm also going to give you that award. Awesome.
Well, Becky and I have got a great marriage. Tonight we have a guest in our home, Dr. Chuck Thurston, and he's waving at me from the living room. He's seated next to one of my pianos that our company invented, the Van Koevering company, and the piano looks like a piano. It looks like a baby grand or a spinet, but it's not a piano. It sounds like a piano and 126 other instruments, and it's got a keyboard and no knobs, no synthesizer. It's got a touch screen, and it's got hundreds of virtual knobs and buttons that appear on the touch screen, and it's a big computer, but it sounds more real than any other synthesizer or keyboard product that has been invented with computers. And anyhow, that's my latest invention in our latest company with a large number of engineers were our employees, over 136, and that's where the 600 patents came from.
That's a lot of work. I think you've mastered at least 10 lifetimes to have done that. There are usually companies that don't have 600 patents.
Yeah, that's right.
Let alone one person. Now, you're the one who spoke about quantum physics on so many different shows, and it's big now. All of a sudden, quantum physics is really big, and people are referring to this thing called quantum physics. But I would like you to translate to the average person the distinction between the quantum and anything else.
Well, the quantum has to do with the very small. Quantum has to do with something so small you cannot see it. You can't hardly comprehend it until you get a good handle on what is really small. And the atom structure, the atomic structure, is the very tiny. And when you look deep into that tiny moving elements, and then you begin to see how tiny can produce and make sounds, frequencies, and energy. Niels Bohr and many others were talking about quantum before I was, and when I got along to the mathematics of quantum math, I felt like I'd really come home to seeing the secrets that God had when He created matter. I now know, and I can prove, that matter has memory. Your body can remember. Careful, so can your walls and the glass in your windows and your automobile. It has subatomic particles that move faster than light, and there's been a number of scientists that have talked about matter of memory in inanimate objects because they're not inanimate. They're very much close to the concepts of life, only they don't know that, and you can't necessarily see that because everything at the quantum level is tiny and is super small. It's the nanovision of subatomic particles so small that they can hardly be perceived, tested, and proven because they're invisible.
Can you break that down like you did on some of the other segments? In other words, it's one thousandth slicing down what a nanosecond is, and
well, a nano is a billionth of a second. So you take a second of a time and you divide it in a billion slices. Now, when you look at one of those slices, you see a nano object that can carry information. Now we're finding computers approaching that size in that dimension. Our body does it systematically and orderly and regularly because it can count the invisible. Much of what happens in your body and in your spirit and in your thought is invisible. And when we talk about the Holy Spirit, we're talking about the part of the invisible Godhead that can live inside of us. It takes up residence in me and in you. And by that knowledge and that scriptural proof that that is there, I can learn about the invisible world that God has created. And then I can amazingly see the invisible world that's for me to create. And with modern electronics, we can go there, we can see it, we can say it, and we can do it. The circuitry of my piano and the circuitry of the orchestron, which was before my piano, was laser optic memory retrieval. It was a film, as in graphic arts film, that we could draw images of sound on the film and play the keyboard instrument back that had a keyboard like a piano on it, and we could play back the nano obstacles, or really not obstacles, the nano potential of what we got from an orchestron by photographing the signals of sound, of musical instruments, 128 instruments, through MIDI, musical instrument digital interface, which was the language of the orchestron, language of the Moog, and it was the language of our Van Koevering Interactive Piano. We've got a house full of them here at my home. I buy them back from the music schools that had them, and they can be upgraded and faster computers put in them. And they don't have any knobs. They have touch screens. And all of the knobs and all of the buttons show up on the touch screen. And it's an amazing device. It can sound like 128 instruments, and any one or two or 10 or 20 of those instruments can be played at the same time. They are fully polyphonic. That means all the notes play on the keyboard, and they can all play 128 different instruments.
Wow.
It's got memory in it. It can record. It's got a lot of the doctrines that I have developed and helped to develop for electronic and musical instruments. And the matter having memory has been one of the themes of my life. I wanted to see synthesizers, the Moog synthesizer, that you could turn it off, and when you turned it on, it could go back to where it was. It had memory to remember where all the knobs were set, and that those knobs were under the control of a very fast computer, and you could play back the sound of your recent past and modify that and store those changes in memory. Now they're used in symphony orchestras, and they're used in live orchestras on stage, where they can take the part of a string section or the brass section of an orchestra, and 128 instruments playing at the same time is no little deal. That's a big deal.
Not at all.
And
You think Barbara Streisand
like
would want this?
acoustical instruments.
You'd think Barbara Streisand would want this. She plays with very, very, very big orchestras. Is it true?
Years ago, when we would talk about who wants to buy this, and I was in the Moog company at that time, and Bob Moog was in charge, we would talk about names. And it was my job to find those people, set appointments with their management teams and their recording teams, fly into those cities and bring a portable version of that synthesizer with us. Some of them were almost too big to move around until they started building space equipment. And by the size of computers made for space that went to the moon, they miniaturized the size to produce nano obstacles, or articles really, and they were obstacles in the middle, in the beginning, but that quickly changed and came into reality. And Moog synthesizers now, and the competitors to the Moog, there's many companies building instruments similar to theirs, but Moog was first sound and synthesis, and Bob Moog and I worked together for over 40 years.
Wow. That's a beautiful thing, isn't it? It's a long time.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. I've had more fun than I'm supposed to have had.
Is it true that you also worked on a particular instrument on or for Ray Kurzweil?
Well, the K250 ended up going into a church mode instrument. It had the sounds of pipe organs and the sounds of high-quality Steinways and Baldwins and other famous pianos. And I assisted in the team and the thought behind the team to building that K250 synthesizer. And I sold a large number. I really don't know how many we got sold. I wasn't the vice president. I didn't have privilege to all of the numbers, but I know we sold 13,000 mini Moogs, but I was vice president of marketing. When we got into the Kurzweil, and Raymond Kurzweil, the artificial intelligence guru on the planet,
yep,
he built a fabulous instrument, and Bob Moog assisted him. I was a part of that team in the marketing side, and I've just had more fun than you're supposed to have.
I don't know what that's going to mean, but it could be a TMI, but I don't think it is. I think you just had a great adventure, great fun. There's a device that you created that emits some type of light or laser 25,000 miles into the heavens. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Well, I can talk about how it started and
Sure.
where it's going. I don't really know where it will end up. We don't know that. The science world is defining better lasers and faster lasers constantly. And that's the language of what I have followed in my later years. I'm 76 years old and doing fine. Had a stroke a year ago. My doctor's here tonight, and there's nothing that he can find wrong with me. So I'm doing great. But
That's
at any
great.
rate, the laser that shines into over 25,000 miles into the heavens is a standard laser that I can buy, but it's got a sound system hooked up to it with a microphone, very, very sensitive. And I can speak into matter, into space, into the unknown, and I can broadcast my voice to the laser. And wherever the laser goes, my voice goes. And wherever my voice goes, my consciousness goes there as well. So when we took the laser and shone it into the heavens, we found that I could speak into the unknown and into the unknown places with my voice and put my consciousness and thought into deep space. One of the engineers from the company that provided the first laser to me, and I helped build the modulation device for the microphone to let my voice get carried on the laser. I asked them, I said, how far does this go? And these were NASA guys. And he said, we don't know. He said, it goes as far as that radio signal goes because it carries the radio bandwidth for electrical, photoelectric energy. And he said, that's what a laser is. I said, well, how far do you think it goes? He said, well, we do know that it was sent toward a satellite in space, and the satellite, NASA satellite, picked it up and sent back a signal to our station, a homing device for the laser, and it carried the signal purely.
Wow.
So we knew that it was well into the reach of modern science, and not to mention that this has applications for medicine, for frequencies to
you know
the
what
body.
It reminds me of? You know what it reminds me of, David? It reminds me of a different form of radionics.
Yes, it is a form of radionics, and it is not so different with modern tools today, we use lasers in many forms of medical services and medical treatment. And these little lasers, they're small devices. They started out being pretty good size and very, very powerful. Now we can build them. I build them that are small enough to be sold for $2,000, and that'll carry your voice to the edge of space and beyond, and it can speak to your body and all of the trillions of cells, and it can cause corrective frequencies to be programmed into your body. Now, there's a lot of doctors that don't really talk about that. The argument could be that they can get a commission from the drug that they put you on, and they'd rather get that commission by putting you on a drug than fixing you with a laser and something that's not quite known or well known as laser medical treatment. And I'm not shooting at doctors because I got one in the house tonight. Good doctor. He's kept me alive. There's been times when, with a stroke and other things, we thought I was done. And he's been able to keep me alive and well. And so I respect and love these doctors that serve us.
What was your intent, David? David, what was your intent in producing that device that goes 25,000 miles into deep space? What were you thinking?
To try to put something in space where man had not yet gone, and to put his presence, his consciousness, his thought, his spirit, his words, his prayer, his intent. See, I'm a guy that believes that your intent is the strongest force you have.
I think a lot of people agree with you. A lot of people.
It's true nonetheless, because when you go into a room, your intent enters the room before you do. And all of its ramifications to the people in the room waiting for your communication of words and of intent. And that intent carries your future and all of its consequences into that room where you are just ready to go, but your intent beats you to the room. And that's true for the salesman that has to make certain kinds of sales that are complex and they're very difficult to close, the closing of the sale. So I've been a marketing guy all my life, and I knew what it was to stand in front of a trade show crowd of sometimes hundreds or thousands of customers for the Moog and for other musical instruments and for products of mine, and that I had an intent that went before me and it carried my message.
Some people may hear that as the spirit goes before you. Do you mean that, or do you mean something else?
No, I mean it's my intent, my spirit, the forces of invisibility that are my body's and my spirit carrying that information. Okay, got it. That's what makes a politician work. That's what makes a businessman successful. That's what makes a good or a bad president, okay? Not that we've had bad ones lately. I'm not saying we have or haven't. But the point is the intent of a motivator and the intent of somebody who perceives the solution. That's the strongest force he'll ever have. It can be understood. I want to introduce the concept of non-locality right where you are right now and what you're talking about. Non-locality, and I want to speak about something for a minute and then give you an example of something and then have you respond to it. All right. 30 years ago, there was a remote viewing program carried out at Stanford Research Institute and the Army Intelligence on the East Coast of the United States. And they were interested in solving the problem about how does the U.S. government and the societies figure out how to spy better than what was then the Russians. It was the Cold War time. They had found out that the Russians and the Chinese were spying on us, and
So this was classified at the time. And first they started to work with the best psychics, but what they wanted was repeatable, verifiable, concrete information and data so that this protocol could be repeated over and over and over again. And the greatest discovery that came out of the remote viewing work done at Stanford Research Institute, which also included Hal Puthoff and many other people, is that our brain is not the producer of everything. The brain is not the mind, that its consciousness has this ability to be both where we are and to go out and get information from somewhere else. And that we can know anything at any time, anywhere. And after 30 years of this, and finally when it was declassified, they started to introduce this protocol called remote viewing, which is totally distinct in the way they translate it as just simply being psychic. And to the point where they could get information on a contract that's in your drawer or what's in your warehouse or something sitting at a nuclear site. The thing is that they would teach people how to go into their subconscious, establish a signal line, meaning where everything converges, and how to pick up information that's always out there anywhere in the cosmos. Literally, if it's the backside of the moon, it's the backside of the moon. If it's Mars, it's Mars. If it's in someone's closet or a bunker, wherever it is, and they draw what they see. It's this whole process. What I realized was that not only was non-locality the biggest discovery, one of the biggest discovery, like at the level of matter has memory, at the level of water has memory, that level of big discovery, which is massive. But the question of how is it that they can go back in time and recover specific details time and time again, to me means everything's being recorded. Literally almost on some type of lattice structure, a crystalline structure. I don't know what it is, but it truly, when you say everything is being recorded, it really is. This team provided the evidence of in the world, the natural evidence that people look for. There is no way they can get this level of information consistently using this protocol unless the past is recorded.
I agree. I agree with all of that.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with David Van Koevering. Rainmaking is about the art and science of receiving, imagining, and delivering. In the quantum realm, when you're using the fact that matter is animate, it's alive, and it has consciousness and intelligence, you're going to set up your organization and what you're doing very differently. If you'd like to set up your organization using this knowledge, call the Rainmaking Company, 626-398-8652. We will help you set up a coherent company. Thank you very much, and back to the show with David Van Koevering.
Tonight in our discussion here with Dr. Thurston from Ohio, he's my family doctor. Becky told him that I had some difficulties, and he said, "I'll be there, David, as quickly as I can get there." I thought it would take a month for him to get away from his emergency room practice up in Chillicothe, Ohio, and he showed up 9 hours later. He drove straight through. Now, that's a doctor.
Yeah, it's a doctor of great rarity, and God love him.
And he makes house calls.
Obviously, my God.
So Chuck Thurston's a great friend of mine, and he's here visiting, doing electronic work with me on other projects. And he's a scientist and a mechanic of many sorts and types. We were having a discussion today about a book that's being written by a team around him. And I was telling him that he could see that book. But I told an author that was doing a book a couple of years ago that worked for me. And I told him, I said, you go to a major bookstore, Books A Million or something, and you go in and ask the manager to give you access to the computer and look for your book. And the book hadn't been finished, it hadn't been published, but they looked for his book, and they printed and sent to me a copy of a news release for his book. It was before the book was finished.
That's wild. Totally
now, you
wild.
can call that insanity, then I'll claim insanity. Or you can call it fraud. I don't think I am one, and I don't practice fraudulent concepts. I am a realist. I didn't get my patents by accident. I didn't get my assets and I have 350 musical instruments in my house.
Your house must be amazing.
Well, it is. It's a museum. And it is a great testament to this ability to see that which has not been and call it into your life. The instruments are very real, and they're really here. I recently sold a large part of my Moog collection to a collector, and he brought a semi, and he filled it in my front yard. We've got a long driveway, and he filled it with Moog synthesizer, including some prototypes that Bob had built and performed, and gave them to me because I had been vice president of Moog during those construction years. So there's the invisible world is real. Now, we don't like to admit that because some can't see it, but others of us can. Architects can see it. Teachers can see it.
I can see some of it. I've been a visionary for 35 years, and I've been seeing something in the world, solutions of which the establishment has not been able to see. But, you can be ahead of your time, too. Very ahead of your time.
Yeah, there is no time frame simply applied to locality. The non-local potential of mankind is huge. That's how records are broken. That's how racehorses come and lose and win and lose and get replaced. The athlete gets replaced, but he can break the record while he's heading for that record-breaking lifestyle. When I was 10 years old, my father started teaching me musical instruments. Now, my father was a master of the symphony orchestras, and he lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he had access to these instruments, the symphony. And I was 10 years old, and he started teaching me piano, pipe organ, xylophone, marimba, vibroharp, handbells, and on the list went. He got to valves, brass instruments, stringed instruments, all the way through Italian harps. And I'm 10 years old. And as he kept teaching me, by the time I was 12, I could play 27 different musical instruments.
So you were one symphony. So you were basically your own symphony.
Well, they called me a child prodigy, which I'm not sure was the right term. I was a normal kid in every other way. But I loved music. I could hear it inside of me. My fingers seemed to know where to go. I can be on stage even today, and a gospel group will be playing or a secular group would be performing, and they'll start playing a song that they wrote last night on the bus coming into Omaha or into some city. And I've never heard the song. Once they start, I hear it. Now, you got to call that something.
Yeah.
Well, take a crack at it. Tell me I'm lying.
No, I know. I actually
that won't
know.
Quite work.
I know what it is. I know what it is. You are already picking up and receiving the future composite, the future of everything that's coming into you.
And I don't take a lot of credit for that, even though it shows up in my patents. It shows up in my inventions. The last little project we had, I sold $25 million worth of stock to one man who was an industrialist who met me. And he said, I want to back you, David. And he did. $25 million later, we had a very successful little piano company, the Van Koevering Interactive Piano. The point is that what you believe and what you say you see, you can say it so clear that a stranger can identify with your vision. And that's important because it takes other engineers to help to invent it, and other engineers and guys and gals that can make the computer do things that I couldn't cause it to do. They back me, and my little team could build these incredible instruments. And I'm proud of that. I'm very proud of that. My family is proud of that.
I want you to talk a little bit about this thing of you cause anything you observe, you're causing something. I want you to talk about the double slit experiment and causation relative to our observation. This is a very important time in history where there's so much at stake and so much angst going on in the U.S. and around the world. I really think it would be quite articulate for you to explain this, particularly now.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to do this. What we say and what we see, we got to be careful. If it's negative, that's what we will get. If it's positive, that's what we will get.
So, for example, let's take a living example right now. In the United States, there is a very high percentage of people in the United States that are very upset with the election results. They are attacking the president-elect, and they are putting him down and calling him a fascist, and all kinds of hit pieces from the news media, from all different factions of the country and outside the country. It's like a never-ending attack. And I mean, I'm on the social network of Twitter and other places. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. It is like a gravitational force times a billion that's going on. The wave of hatred and vitriol toward this one man. So in the context of this going on, how might we use the quantum knowledge to transmute this and transform it into something that could end up being a disaster? Because I don't think you can have that much hatred directed at you and it not impact your ability to get things done, no matter who you are. Talk about how something changes the observation in the double slit experiment and how we would translate that into this example.
Be careful what you see and be careful what you say. Be careful because you're going to get it. Now, you say you're not going to do that. Well, I've come up with too many ideas that raised a lot of money. The last little project was $25 million and then $10 million from the sale of product after we built the prototypes and got into production. We got what we saw and we got what we said. Careful. Our kids are getting that today or not getting that today. And what they see and they say is becoming their reality.
It's like it's creating a gravitational wave. Now, a lot of people in the metaphysical communities will call this just the basic law of attraction stuff. But this is more in the realm of even physics than that commentary. Yeah. And could you describe the physics of how this works?
Well, you get to call people into your life. And with the people come their, I want to say, God ideas. Good ideas, God ideas come with the people. Everybody is unique. And when you attract the certain kind of engineers, you get success. And you attract lesser engineers, and you don't get as much success. And it's all tied to the ratio of how clear you are with your vision. I've been very clear with mine, and I've been hugely successful. The products that we sold have sold millions of dollars of Moog and Kurzweil and Van Koevering and Vako, V-A-K-O, from my last name, Van Koevering.
Can you talk about the double slit experiment and why it's relevant?
Well, the double slit experiment is how we look at reality. And I don't know that I am the author or the character to speak so clearly about this double slit experiment. But what you observe, you cause to be.
And what you observe and the way you observe it has an impact on that which you're observing. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, absolutely.
In your world, are electrons intelligent?
Yes, they are. I think that the invisible world, the smaller you get, the closer you get to the God idea that's birthed into matter, and that I am able to speak what I see and cause it to be. Now, you can deny that. You can tell me it didn't work, but I'll go turn it on, and it does work.
What about somebody like Nichola Tesla, who spoke so many things into being and was robbed of 90% of what he had and stolen. His patents, his everything was taken away from him, and he was left penniless at the end of his life. What do you say to that? This guy wasn't a God guy? What do you say to that?
No, I think he was, but I think that he was outsmarted by a more clever man, George Westinghouse, than he might have been. And that he talked too much about the theory of tomorrow and the inventing that he needed to do. And he may have cut himself short with the kind of talent that he put together. And he needed maybe more bodies, more minds, more talent. I've read a lot about his life at Christmas time. I asked for books that I didn't have on Nichola Tesla. I find them more than fascinating.
Yeah, he said that what one man calls God, another calls the law of physics. Now, were you received by the physics world, and are you received well in the religious Christian world?
Absolutely. I think I'm received very well.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with David Van Koevering. As you well know, a voice is not just a voice. A voice transmits authority, warmth, embracing, and honesty. A voice can transmit trust or lack of trust. And so a voice is very important. And if it's important to you for your products, your services, businesses, and you would like a really wonderful voice synchronized with your offerings, call right after this studio at
800-809-0802.
Listen to that voice. Now, I can't compete with that voice. Bruce Barker rocks. And if you happen to want Kim Greenhouse's voice to be synchronized with anything you do, you call right after this and get Bruce on the phone, and he'll contact me, and we'll work something out all together. Thank you very much, and back to the show with David Van Koevering. Let's talk about light for a couple of minutes. I want to talk about subatomic particles and light, and I want to talk about the fact when I was in Geneva over the summer, back in June, July, I was in Geneva, and I went to CERN. And a lot of people are very afraid of what's going on at CERN, even though it's this big international science project, and they're working with particle physics, and it's one of the most powerful experiments in the world. But I wondered, what is the highlight of what you found out about subatomic particles being faster than light, the speed of light? This is really profound.
The challenge for me was a better definition on how to find the reality of a vision. And that really concerned me because I had not been able to make everything that I saw physical and everything that I saw affordable and everything that I saw become manageable. So I needed people and God ideas and money. And when I started thinking about, be careful what you see and what you say and what I see, that I see, and you gotta consider the fact that I am a visionary. Well, most people are. The scripture says that Jesus told his disciples, he said, I'm going to leave you, I'm going to die, and I'm going to send the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit's going to come, and he's going to lead you into all truth. Now, this is Jesus talking in the New Testament. I'm going to lead you into, the Holy Spirit's going to lead you into all truth. And then he said maybe the most profound thing he said in his lifetime. He, the Holy Spirit, is going to show you things to come. And I said, boy, that's where I need to go.
Absolutely.
I want to live there. I want to see what I see becoming my reality. And I found that it takes a lot of focus and a lot of hard work, and it takes a multiplication of others. You got to fill in the blank spots, and it has little to do with age. I'm 76 now, and I can think almost as rich as I could as a teenager. I think I can. My ideas appear to be more marketable than they've ever been.
Well,
my
the world is more ready
devices
for them
medical
now.
Are really setting people free.
Don't you think the world is more ready now? The world is
are
more
people
ready.
more ready?
Yes.
I think people have to be more ready because our communication skills and equipment and technologies are so high that there's no secrets.
And that's the other part of what I want to say to you, which is that between drones and miniaturized recording devices, the Internet of Surveillance, and the world of chips and surveillance, how is it, as you were describing what happened with Tesla, he maybe spoke too much or shared too much, how is it that the pioneers and visionaries and artists and creatives and entrepreneurs of our world, how do they secure their works so that they can see the light of day and become fulfilled? I mean, I have my own take on this, but I'm asking you.
Well, locks and keys was a beginner, and safes and vaults, that was another step in the right direction. But at some point, with copy machines and computers and interconnected phone lines and television lines, they didn't have the security of lock and key and vault and safe to keep their secrets secret. And with the more people that we put into a team, you lose the secrecy, you lose the isolation of what personal and private means.
This is huge because we've never dealt with this before, that this level of exponentiation.
I think inventors have dealt with this from the beginning of patents.
Right. But I mean, the exponentiation of the mass problem of it, it's so huge now.
Well, it is huge now because it is the news story. And I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what it is. I may have too simple of a solution. I think the law has got to come up to speed quickly.
Yep.
I'm not sure you can legalize this. I'm not sure it can be protected. I have patents that I could not win. I'm not going to mention company names, but a major manufacturing company of electronic musical instruments said that there was prior art to my patent. And so they sued me, started the fight, and I was ready to sue them because they'd copied me. And I couldn't win the case because they could go sell certain items that were high-ticket items. They could sell them by the thousands. And they were double the price of my product, but it wasn't the musical industry that they were building into.
Right.
And they were building into the sporting industry. And it's a sad story. The last payment we paid to the attorneys was $500,000, and we couldn't win the case because I could run out of money, and they can't.
And this is where I want to ask you a tough question now.
Mm-hmm.
This goes on all over the world. This is chronic. It's about one's ability to defend what one has rather than just to claim it. So the question is, how do God's solutions and discoveries, new and ancient knowledge, what is the protection on earth in the natural? How would you now call in the protection?
Okay. For me, the problem was with the Van Koevering Interactive Piano, and we had it patented. Several patents had been given already. We were having to defend them. $500,000 was one of the last payments we paid to the attorneys.
God, I'm so sorry. That's
and
terrible.
and I didn't have that money. I had to sell stock of my ownership of the company. Not all of it, but a big part of it. And I realized that the first guy who really goes to the market and really gets the sales and gets the dealerships is a solution. Now, that doesn't sound like a solution. That's standing face in the street with a competitor and telling him you're gonna stay there and you're not gonna go away, and they can't spend enough money to make you go away, and you demonstrate that to some extent. And it's confidence in your product, confidence in your team, and it's confidence into the press that you become the established name for a given technology. Bob Moog became the name for the Moog synthesizer and its low-pass filters. I was for the interactive piano, which was a huge computer that could do sorts of things that you could actually make it work a printer and print your music on paper. Now, that was a technology that was coming from the computer industry. But we capitalized on doing those things and doing them well, trying to see the future and clarifying it in its simplest form And that's a tough set of calls. I mean, that's tough. How do you get talented young people that can live with the fact that we're going to be copied and they're going to be copied? And how can you motivate them without paying huge salaries or stock options? And those are the challenges that I was facing. And I just said to the Lord, these are God ideas, Lord. I believe that these are for the kingdom of God and for the church and for the Christian community. These are musical instruments that we've not had since the 150th Psalm, unison of these kinds of instruments. And Lord, I just need your help, and I ask for it sincerely. And because of the faith, I had one company come to me and say, we're not going to continue copying you. We got a hold of some of your teaching, and we can't hold the standard where you have it. So we won't try, because we're going to follow you.
That's great. Wow.
And I think that is a safe solution. Now, maybe not the best. There's people listening to me right now that are attorneys that can argue maybe better than I can about the righteousness of a patent. Well, I had patents and I didn't have righteousness until I claimed righteousness and I said righteousness. And I described my future so clear that the competitive manufacturers wanted to do what I knew I was going to do, and they didn't know how to beat me. So they chose to follow me. I guess that's the best way to beat competition. Now, some are going to argue with that. Some are going to say, you were weak, David. Well, go talk to my family and talk to my employees, 136 people. Talk to 175 dealers and thousands of customers.
You know, some people would have killed themselves over this.
Well,
and some people would want to kill themselves over this.
My wife said she's never thought of divorce, but she's thought of murder once or twice.
What's the distinction between subatomic particles and faster? And the subatomic particles, why are they faster than the speed of light? And why is that relevant?
Well, it's relevant because the size of an article or a subatomic particle, a tachyon, for instance, we don't really know a lot about the tachyon. Gerald Feinberg called it a tachyon. I met his mother in one of my conferences one day in New York, and he had already passed. And he's the bright guy who was first to start arguing that the subatomic particle of a tachyon is in all matter, and it was created by God, as all subatomic particles are, and that like radio or television or other particles, subatomic particles, used in communication and used in broadcasting and used in creative articulation, that those things have a right to be, and all those things have an integrity to be and have a life to be. They have a life of their own. The day will come, and I told my doctor friend here at our home tonight, I told him, I said, within the next few years, I don't know, 4 or 5 or sometime in some near future, we will have matter playing back. What do you think Edison did with the phonograph? What do you think Columbia did with a flat record? They had matter playing back. Now we do it with tape. They did it with wire. We do it with computers.
Compact flash.
I mean, the world is filling up with means and mechanisms to be able to play back the past and to play back the potential future of a kind of technology.
So do you think that Ray Kurzweil, who seems to be on a track of AI and we're never going to die and putting nanobots and nanochips in our bodies and this whole mechanization of nanotechnology into the body and fusing us with machines so that we become the Internet of Things, we become one with machines. Where are you at about that? And this?
Well, I'm not sure I know where he is because I haven't had time with Raymond like I had, some time back a few years ago when Bob Moog was with his company, and now Bob's gone. And I'm no longer working on a daily basis close to Ray, so I can't get his full opinion. I probably could if I tried hard enough.
Where are you at about artificial intelligence and how far it's going right now? And where the powers that be want to take it?
I think that the powers of the military and the policies of the financial world are forcing us to think about concepts that are now being pressed upon us, currencies and exchange of currencies. I think we're right close to big changes in currencies. And I think that artificial intelligence will show us a road to better future and bigger futures, more efficient futures. And I think that we're very, very close.
You don't think it's going to take away billions of jobs from people if it has a life of its own and goes accelerated too quickly?
It could, and fear has to be carefully controlled at this point.
Sure.
To keep that from spreading, because the positive also can be spread.
Sure.
And I'm an optimist. I'm a pathological optimist, okay? And you probably are too. So
I am too. I am an optimist, even in the face of all this.
Yeah, I am too. I'm an optimist. I see a better world. I see a better kind of currency. I see a better kind of economy. I'm proud of what I have been able to do with a small piece of the economy that I deal with. I see great changes happening in our medical community for the better, and I see our educational system. The people that I talk to and the people that converse with me regularly, the people that come to my home, for instance, these are also optimists, okay? These are guys that are positively right, and they demonstrate it by making good decisions for other people. And now that's not going to be the only part of the answer.
I have another question for you, which is one of the issues that people have with religion, and I'm going to say religion in general, traditionally, is they're attracted to the precepts, they're attracted to the writings of traditions, different traditions, but they are repelled by the dogma and the judgment and the crystallized consternation of people who are not within the particular religion that they are. This is something that's been going on a long time, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, so it's that expression, nothing new under the sun. In the context of your work and your understanding and your spirit in the area of Christianity, how do you think it's possible, using the quantum knowledge, to remove the dogma and remove the consternation and the religious spirit from Christianity to become more like the loving Jesus that was and is eternally?
I think it's going to take time. I think that there's a generation that's out there that are doing things that I know about. The kind of men that came to my company to be employed or came to my company to be investors. And I'm talking about the Van Koevering Piano Company, the Interactive Piano in Des Moines, Iowa, where we had our headquarters. I think it's going to take a little more time. I think that those people are there in large numbers. I don't think that they are weak-hearted. I don't think they are weak-spirited. I think they are noble. I think they are men and women of integrity. So I look at all of this and I have hope. I got grandkids and I got children that are close to me and they're friends of mine. I got confidence in these kids. Now, are they the same as my generation? I hope not, and I think not. I think they could be broader than mine. Education has accelerated. The tools of education.
Wow.
The internet. The fact that they can get more information faster than I could gather in a year's time, they can get in a minute or two's time. That is a remarkable breakthrough.
Yes, it is.
And the very fact that information is that accessible, that ought to help us doing things concerning the military that's wrong or doing things about crime that's not correct. Crime has to be punished. It's got to be punished better than it's been punished. This cop killing has to stop. But we're going to have to find new answers to old problems. And I think that those will be found. I think they're going to come from our culture. I think they're going to come from our society. I think they're going to come from our families and our kids. I got confidence in our kids. I had 136 of them working for me in my last company. And our payroll was positive. And we never lost a dollar. And we never lost a dime. And we never wasted time.
Were you a great cheerleader?
Well, I think I was an effective cheerleader.
That's great.
I did a lot of cheering.
I'm sure you did. And a lot of inventing. I want to take you back to the quantum physics for a moment. I want to go back. I'm going to stay on this question with you because it's very important to impacting consciousness and impacting what we can manifest. The question I have for you is, if subatomic particles are faster than the speed of light, what does this mean for the ability to manifest faster something and bring it into the world of form, or bringing substance into the world of form?
It's happening right next to us. It's going on right around us. Our computers right now are 3 to 5 times faster than they were 3 to 4 years ago. And the faster the computer, the quicker it processes. The quicker it processes, the quicker we have solutions and answers. And the computers are more effective, and the people running them are more talented and more committed than any generation before them. I am a positive visionary. I dare believe in these young people. I dare believe, and I'm not a kid. I'm 76 years old.
You are too, a big kid.
If you came to my home,
you are
there's
too.
one room here that's got 417 robots.
417 robots?
I collect them. I have been for years.
Wow.
A young man was visiting with his parents, and he said, Mr. Van Koevering, how many robots do you have? And he said, this whole room full of them upstairs. I said, I don't know. He said, can I count them? So he drew pictures on my shelves, little sketches, and then he counted them. He was 10 years old, and he told me, he said, you got 470 robots. I said, if you say so. He walked in another room upstairs, and I had cast cars, these model cars, the expensive ones, about $100 a car. And he saw cars in there he'd never seen before, and these are little models. And he said, why do you have so many cars? I said, I like cars. Well, he said, I see that you like them, but why?
It's because you are a child. That's why.
I am a child. My
That's
doctor
okay.
told me that today.
And I think any inventor and any major creative person, someone that's in love with invention and discovery, has to be to live in the realm. Now, yes. I want to bring you back. Got to bring you back. And then we're going to wrap it up as Conversation 1 with David Van Koevering. With regard to the subatomic particles, now we're not talking about subatomic particles in a computer context. We're talking about subatomic particles, the quantum realm, calling in the manifestation faster than normal people live in their mind in time. Yep. See, I think people are so entrenched in their translation and beliefs about time, how long something will take, that they don't understand, that they truly don't grok the power of the now, the supernatural right now, that things can happen much faster, but because of our beliefs in time and things having to be out there and take for so long in time, that we are already adjusted to this elongated cycle of delivery when it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. And so, to me, the crystallization, the fact that a belief is crystallized beyond an idea, see, to me, ideas are fluid. They come and go. They have their own natural circulation system. But when a belief is in place, to me, it has a lattice structure. It is crystallized. It is more structured and dense. And that's why it's so hard for people to transmute them when they're negative or when they are wrong and it's pure dogma about something, because it's highly structured and dense. Do you agree?
I do agree. And I think that we have learned with certain marketing tools, engineering tools, that were of interest to me as a child. For instance, the Edsel. People didn't like it, they didn't buy it, and it went away.
Well, I don't even know what it was.
It was a car.
Okay, see?
The Edsel,
you just dated
Ford
yourself.
Edsel, was a car equal to the kind of car that the Mercury was. They had spent billions of dollars building factories and building Edsels, setting up new kinds of finances and new kinds of dealerships, and It died. It just went away. I think that mankind has reached a standard that if it doesn't win, they even cancel the ball club.
Absolutely.
If it can't win, they turn it down. The politicians that can't win don't have a leg to stand on anymore. You've got to be a winner and a doer and a successful player. The country that can't win a war can't last. A business that can't beat the competition can't last. And they're looking for leadership that can win, that is right more than wrong, and that is righteous more than wrong. Righteousness still works. The business of righteousness still works in banking business and in real estate and in finance. So I'm only proving now that I am a pathological optimist. And I am honored by this opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking with the founder of the Van Koevering Interactive Piano, David Van Koevering, physicist, quantum physicist, inventor, speaker, writer, author. You can find out more about him at davidvankoevering.com and also the website elsewhen, ELSEWHEN.com. And David, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you with us today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy life. And I hope to have you back and invite you back for part 2 with David.
I'm looking forward already.
God bless you and thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you've enjoyed this segment of It's Rainmaking Time with David Van Koevering and would like to see part 2 as television rather than as a podcast, let us know by sending an email to timing@rainmaking.com. We've found that when there's a demand for something that's expressed concretely, such that a demand pull can be measured, delivery accelerates. We look forward to hearing from you.
It's Rainmaking Time.